I think everyone knows Raymond. I just have a couple words to say about Raymond.
It's being recorded, George.
I can't say, Raymond is my brother. He really is. And God bless him. I've never had a brother. And since we moved to town and since I got to know Raymond, I think he's fulfilled a lot of that for me as well as for this mission. But the old saying is, my brother from another mother. I can't even say that. My brother from I always say a similar mother. And I think our moms had the same, always has this same cherish for their children. I mean, they brought us up in the church. That was our life. And obviously, we're continuing to fulfill that. And Raymond does a lot also that we don't realize for the mission and the church. He looks out for the good for everything. He's always got a different point of view. He's always watching out for the variables that I think a lot of us don't even realize sometimes. And we need that balance. He's got a very keen mind, but he's got a very generous heart, and he's contributed so much to helping all of us grow this mission. And it's not our church, and it's not our mission. We both know that. Even though, we started the services 12 years ago, this wasn't for each other. This wasn't for any satisfaction other than, how much we loved and grew up and praised God and where we want to be and where we want our families to be. It's tough when you come, when you're Orthodox, when you're faithful, period. When you go to a place and there's no church, we've been there. There's a church you're not used to. It's an empty feeling. And this is our fulfillment, and I think we both share that. So, God bless you, Raymond. You do a lot for us too, and can't wait to meet you upset. Okay.
Wow, thank you. So,
Appreciate you speak up here.
I will try to speak up here. So, my job is to help get everybody on the same page, as Father said, to be good stewards. And I'm going to start right into it, but we're going to kind of be patient and we'll get back to other options. I'm here to present the option of purchasing and why we should be looking at purchasing now, as opposed to renting a larger facility or trying to figure out how we can stay here and make this work. So be patient, because I'm going right to a solution, knowing that there are other options. So let's just talk about why it's a good time right now to look at purchasing. So what I do, I've been licensed in real estate for 24 years, and we've never seen anything like what we're seeing now in real estate. Residential real estate, I happen to be a commercial specialist, so I'm going to talk about commercial because actually it fits what we're talking about tonight, is a commercial building. Real simply, this is a great time to purchase. It's going to only get better in some ways because values are dipping. Coincidentally, I talked to an escrow officer, and it seems like things are picking up in the residential world right now because people are starting to feel that we've hit the bottom. So there's actually more activity residentially. Commercial has still dropped, but it's dropped significantly. And so the first point here is, why are we even thinking about purchasing? Because right now values have substantially dropped. That actually makes it affordable for where we are financially, as Kelly's presented, for our church. So why not look at it? Let's investigate it, because it's a great time. In fact, values have dropped, in what I've seen in our local area, about half of what they were 5 years ago. There was a building that sold for $2.6 million on Gurley Street. It used to be called Chicago Title, on the east side of Gurley Street, across from Compass Bank, and it sold about 6 months ago for $650,000. 2.6 to 650. That's just one example. Now that's an extreme example, but gives you an idea that things are pretty low right now, so let's look at it, okay? Second point is that by purchasing the building right today, it'll actually be less expensive to pay a mortgage, or however we have to do it, than it would be renting. And we're going to show you that example later on. We have some comparisons for you to see that. If we buy low now, our third point, it'll help ensure that this interim building, that's what we're looking at, is an interim bridge building. In 5 years, if that's how long it takes us, we buy low, we hopefully will sell high, but if that doesn't work out, if we bought low enough, we should help protect the equity that's there, because we're not buying at the top, we're hopefully buying at the bottom. So that will help us down the road. So the other thing, if we purchase a building, we're going to have to obviously spend a little money renovating because it's not going to be a church ready for us just to walk in. So as we purchase and renovate a commercial building, that'll help get us to all our requirements. So we'll talk about those a little more later. That's going to be part of this equation. So it's not just purchasing, we're going to have to also spend a little money to renovate. And then once we renovate that building, so the last point here about why purchasing, what are we creating with that purchased, renovated building? We've created a church, a functioning church, that when and if we're ready to move on, 5 years, 7 years later, we now have a direct market to market this building to sell. Because we all know, if you've been in Prescott a little bit of time, I think there's over 85 churches just in Prescott, not including the Tri-City area. So we have, in my world as a marketing real estate commercial specialist, you want to know where your market is 5 years down the road. And it's a good place to be to have a church ready to sell that can accommodate a church of 200 or more. It's a good place to be. So I don't feel like it's a big risk to own a building in this town that's a church when we're ready to move on and go to our next step. That's our last point. So those are the advantages. Now I might have missed some, but we can talk about that later. So our next slide. So what was the criteria that our board considered in looking for a facility to purchase in our community? We're going to talk about that criteria. The first criteria is we had to have a budget. We needed a number to start with. Based on our financials that Kelly's going to get into a little later, we felt that we could only look at buildings less than $400,000. That was our cap. Okay, pretty easy to understand. You'll see why. With a monthly payment of $3,000 a month. You know, so rent or purchase, that's kind of our budget that we comfortably can afford and be good stewards. The second criteria was our location. Now, you know, we have a Quad City area, Chino, Prescott Valley, Dewey, Humboldt, but why Prescott? Because we considered those other areas as well. We felt it was important to share why we think Prescott is the right location. Most members actually on our roster live in Prescott. Definitely not all of them, and there's a growing number outside of Prescott, we recognize that. But we felt that more central Quad City hub, Prescott in the, there's North Prescott, there's East Prescott, to try to kind of be in more of the Tri-City or Quad City hub, whether it was in downtown or at least in those areas, so the other communities could be close to that. We also felt that from an investment standpoint, it would be a lower investment risk to stay in Prescott than in other communities, just because Prescott historically has held its value. And this is the place people think of when they think of our area, think of Prescott. So we thought it was a safer risk and also a better resale value. Homes in Prescott obviously sell for more than homes in other areas. Commercial in Prescott sells for more than commercial in other areas. It's the way it is. So that's why Prescott. The other criteria, as his father described our shortfalls in our current location, are saying pretty much what we need to accommodate us for the next 5 years. At least 200 seats for worship, tall ceilings like we have here, because we've looked at buildings that could accommodate 200 with 8-foot, 10-foot ceilings, and it doesn't feel orthodox. It just does not feel right. Because we want to have as genuine of an Orthodox experience as we possibly can. And something about tall ceilings that really lends itself to that. So actually that's a criteria that we just felt that was very important. Classroom areas, separate kitchen and fellowship area, and of course parking. And just to give you a quick idea of what we have here, with the parking lot across the street, we roughly have 40 spots. Probably we're at close to 80% capacity. So obviously parking becomes something that we have to really consider. And in Prescott, if you know Prescott, parking is not always the easiest thing to find because land is not abundant in terms of just open space. So once again, we prefer to purchase to capitalize on the extremely low prices today. And that's what we're talking about at the moment. Okay, next. So in that criteria, what have we looked at? These are some of the buildings, and I think you'll know when I point out kind of where they are. Miller Valley Bank Building That used to be the old Stockman's Bank next to True Value. It's kind of been closed for 5 years, just empty. It's got a drive-through and everything. Well, let's look at that. It's 400, almost 500,000, and it needed about 100,000 in remodeling to make it work. Didn't fit our economic budget, either way on the purchase or on the remodel. Good location, nice Prescott, good long-term value. It's going to be a great fast food drive-through place close to the hospital, but probably not going to work for us. Center Point East, that's the property out across from the golf course. If you know where the Potter's house is and Heights, those churches at the intersection of 89 going up to Pioneer Parkway. In that area, there's an industrial park there called Center Point East. Commercial buildings, 5,000 square feet, would meet our size criteria, getting close to our $400,000, needing at least about 60,000. Great Tri-City area, Quad City area, because it's central to all communities. It's still Prescott, but and it's close to Chino, close to backside of Prescott Valley, really great location. But that would, just pushing us just a little too far. Couldn't make that work. Prescott Lakes Commerce Center, that's where the Courier's office is. It's actually where Willow Lake Road and Willow Creek Road kind of intersect. If you know where that's, Prescott Lakes area. Nice little commercial complex, but it is a commercial complex, and it will be really hard to get the appropriate zoning and approval from the HOA and from the city. But besides that, it was a really nice building, 5,300 square feet, could lay out really well to accommodate all our facility requirements. Almost 600,000 with another, 50, so 625. So even though prices are low, these obviously couldn't cut it for many reasons. So, but we did find one, and we'll talk about that next. So stay where we are on a month-to-month basis and continue to look. That's kind of what we came away with, because even though prices are down, we still haven't seen the quantity of supply of commercial properties really hit our community yet. So I just keep telling the board, let's just be patient, because the right building will come if it's meant to be.